Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday night's Torah class on Zoom. So happy for all of our new friends who joined tonight. If everyone can please go grab some tzedakah. We always like to start the class by giving, because the way we give, that's how Hashem gives to us. So please consider to give generously. So I'm going to put some coins in tzedakah, and giving is in all different types of forms. So what I like to do in the class to give is to pray for people who need it. So we're going to start with Refuah Shalema. And I just want to share the people that I'm sharing on this class. It's very personal people in my life that I know personally that need these prayers. If anyone has anyone in that they would like to add, please post it in the inbox and everyone will say amen together. Okay, so Refuah Shalema for Genya Bat Tamar, Bluma Necha Bas Chana, Rezel Bas Hadas, Avram Hirsch Ben Etta, Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel, Shimon Ben Alice, Shalom Dover Ben Rachel Bela, and this is something that just came to light. Someone very close to me that I grew up with as a child. She really needs a big miracle, so please have her in mind. Chana Leah Yehudis Bas Necha Fredo. If everyone can please say amen to all that. This is going to be in memory of Rafal Aaron Yoel Halevi Ben Rachel, Yisrael Ben Avram Vasara, Hinda Leah Bas Menachem Mendel, Chana Bas Aaron Leib, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda, Amina Basha Bas Vega Chaya, Rachelea Bas Yosef Yehuda, and Maisha Ben Menachem Mendel. Also in memory of Hesha Bas Yehudis, Adel Rezel Bas, Eliyahu Ben Rachel. That's Shelly's father. He's surely so proud of Shelly. So he should come back with Mashiach so soon. And this is in honor of these friends Shidduch. So if everyone could please post in the inbox more names. Chanoch Ben Chaya Leah, Shelly Atara Bat Leah, Hinda Bas Chaya, Esther Bella Bas Yokova, and Mayor Shmuel Ben. Okay, then we're gonna do it. This is also for someone that needs
two names for Shidduch, Mazel Bat Rivka, and I have also for Refuah Shlema if you want to add it now or after.
So say
Yaakov Ben Sarah for Refuah Shlema, and Shidduch for Chaya Chana Bat Masha Peril, and also, we have to pray for Etta Rezel Bat Chaya Ben Yom Tov.
And also, this is in merit of a dear friend of mine that needs good news for herself, Zelda Bat Chana Bracha. So prayers have and if everyone could say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
For Michaela Leah Bat Devorah. Amen.
Amen. So if everyone can please post in the inbox how you heard about the class so we hear how it's getting around, that would be really great. And before we start, just a small reminder, this is a women's class, so if you have anyone in the background that's not a woman, please close your screen, but please show your screen, because it's really nice for the speakers and for us to see who's on. It just makes the class feel more like it's a live class rather than a Zoom class. So everyone can please put on your screens if you're comfortable, only if you're comfortable. Now with the inbox, how it works, if you have any questions that you would like to ask for the speakers, and if you can please post a picture, post a question. Hold on. Sorry, people don't realize when they come on, you need to be muted, but post the question in the inbox. If you have any comments about the class, we'd so love to hear about it. So please reach out to us after the class. The inbox is just meant for questions and names for Refuah Shalema. Thank you to Shelly for sharing with us your time and your amazingness. She's my co-host. We work really hard on this class, and we're really so grateful to all our viewers and all our participants, and especially all our amazing guest speakers that join us weekly and volunteer their amazing time with us. So thank you. Our speaker that we have tonight, we have two amazing speakers, Shevi Vigler, Mrs. Shevi Vigler, who's a shlucha in Manhattan. She'll tell you a little bit about that. but we met in Cancun, Mexico, about 2 years ago, and we were at a Farbrengen. A Farbrengen is a gathering where people get together and you share ideas and discuss spiritual ideas, and some people sing and also bless people. And we started off tonight with blessing and sharing blessings. We went around the table and we blessed everyone what people need. One of the women there needed a job and to find her other half. She was divorced for a very long time, and she was very worried about how she was going to be able to support herself. So I was very honored and blessed to be able to help her find a job. And very soon after she came back from Cancun, Mexico, that nice new friend that I met reached out to me and met a really nice person, and I was invited to their wedding, and I went, and it was really special. We also blessed Shevi, the speaker. It was a really, really powerful night. Like literally, we didn't want to leave. And something that she needed a new home, and she was blessed with purchasing a home for herself in Manhattan. And it was just so special to see how a simple person can really bless, and the blessings could come true. So if you sincerely bless people, just know that Hashem listens. If it comes from your true heart, a simple person like me would bless some people and was able to hook them up. And we heard good news in a revealed way. And it was just a really cool thing to see that words have powers. So use them wisely, and thoughts have powers. So when you think good about someone, it becomes true. And when you praise someone or you share good things, so just always try to look at everyone with your right eye and look at everyone with goodness and kindness, because it really goes a long way. The fact that I was able to see it in this life is a blessing. So I want to welcome tonight. Before I welcome Shevi, this class is in honor of my friend Miriam, who needs a refuah shalema. Miriam Bas Ina Pesa Yocheved. She's a mother of 3 that was in a car accident in Far Rockaway. So Meir Hashem, we should hear good news very, very soon. And it's also in memory and in honor of my dear friend's birthday, Chana Bas Aaron Leib. She passed away at a young age of 23. We missed her very, very much. We just had her Zaydi's Shleishim last night, which was very special. If anyone wants to see it, they could reach out. I can send you the link. It was unbelievable. I went in person. What a special person he came from. But now they're together in heaven. But in Mirz Hashem, we should see all of our loved ones, everyone that we need to see, back with us. You know who you are. I'm talking to all of you on the class. I'm having you in mind, but we should really just have Mashiach come back so we don't have to do these classes. We can have them in person and just celebrate and dance together with the coming of Mashiach. So I want to welcome our dear guest speaker, who has such a busy shluchas, but she took time because she felt so passionate about this topic, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife, and to speak about her because her family was honored to have a beautiful relationship with the Rebbe and a beautiful relationship with his Rabbitson and our Rabbitson. And what's really cool, just want to share this, her grandfather was Rabbi Lou. He wrote a couple of books. So if anyone wants, I could send you the links as well. And he was a Shabbos guest. He was a guest when he would come into town. He used to come, he would stay in my home. My mother hosted him, and he actually referenced my mom. And it's really cool how everything connects. Everything's a circle. And tonight she's going to share with us some of her personal stories with the Rabbitson.
Okay, thank you, Chaya. That was a stunning introduction, and I am amazed, and I feel this awesomeness of being in this room on a random Tuesday night. Well, you know, on a regular, is it Tuesday? Wednesday night, with all of us here learning together. And I just think, wow, God, Hashem, this is so powerful. All these women are here coming together to connect, to learn together. And as Chaya mentioned, when we gather together, it's a very meaningful and powerful time that we have the ability to bless each other. It's not just that our words are special, but at a Farbrengen, we have a special power, and what we can accomplish is extremely powerful. So we should utilize this opportunity to bless one another with good health, with simchat, with happiness, with nachat, and everything should be revealed good, and we should have the coming of Mashiach, where we will be reunited with our loved ones, and we shouldn't have to start the meeting with all the things that didn't happen. And what I found so beautiful is that Chaya was able to say that when we gathered together, how many beautiful and amazing blessings came out from that. So as she mentioned, I do come from England, as you may have noticed, and my maiden name is Lou. So my grandparents were Jaffe, just a slight edit over there. They used to rent an apartment, like they came to New York every year, three times a year, and they would stay next to where Chaya's family lived, and that's how that relationship happened. The reason I'm here today is because Chaya is insistent and she makes things happen, and that's a real incredible quality that she has, to do all this good and not give up. And she's right, the Rabbitson does have a very strong meaning in my family growing up and as a woman, and I definitely want to be able to share that here today. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for coming here. So like I said, I was born in England, and my grandparents also were born in England, and they had gone through a tragedy, which, they were traditional Jews, but having gone through a certain tragedy, they were taken by their Chabad rabbi to visit the Rebbe for some inspiration, for some chizuk, for some strength. And that really was a trajectory for their relationship with the Rebbe. And they had a very personal relationship and a friendly and warm relationship with the Rebbe, because my grandfather just had this personality that was vibrant, big and grand. And he was funny, and the Rebbe became like someone very close to him. And when it came time to marry his daughter, which was my mother, off, he asked the Rebbe if the Rebbe would marry them, be the rabbi who would officiate at the wedding. And even though the Rebbe didn't fully commit, they moved the entire wedding from England, Manchester, England, to the States in the hopes that maybe the Rebbe would do this. The Rebbe hadn't been doing this any longer for at least a year plus. But in that small chance that the Rebbe would officiate the wedding, they moved the whole wedding to New York. And at the same time, my grandfather said to the Rebbe, do you think the Rabbitson would come for the wedding? And the Rebbe said, I'll check, but I know she knows who you are, because at that point, my grandfather was he heard the Rabbitson liked flowers, and he sent roses every Friday to the Rabbitson. So the Rebbe said to my grandfather, I know that the Rabbitson knows who you are because you say it with flowers. And then the Rebbe came back and he said, the Rabbitson's not going to be able to attend the wedding, but she would like to invite you and the young couple to come to tea in her house. And that was huge. Most people at that time didn't really interact with the Rabbitson. There were very select few families that had or knew of the Rabbitson. The Rebbe was a public figure and sort of, there was times where he gave dollars and gave talks and all these big moments where the Rebbe was our leader and in the forefront, whereas the Rabbitson was more, I guess you would say she was more humble or quiet or did things in her own way. And so they went to this tea, and it was like preparing for going to something very unique and very special. And there were a lot of nerves involved. And they went to this tea and to this lunch, and everyone was so nervous and not knowing where to put themselves. And as my grandfather tells over this story, and he writes about it in these books he put together, in these diaries, and he says everyone was just so nervous and trying to be on their best behaviors. And someone had asked for the drink. So my father, who was the young groom, took the pitcher, the punch, and tried to, pass it along the table and pour the drink for someone else at the table, when the whole cup spilled and there was pink red punch all over the pristine white tablecloth. And of course, my father was horrified and so mortified and embarrassed. And the Rabbitson made so light of it. She said, oh, wow, siman bracha, that's a blessing. This should be a blessing. It's a sign of a blessing. Thank you. And it made my father feel so good about this that my grandfather joked afterwards that he almost wanted to go spill his own cup because of the grandiose that the Rabbitson made my father feel. So this was the start of a very special relationship that every time my family did come to New York, they were honored and privileged to be able to go visit the Rabbitson at home. In fact, when I was a baby, I went with my mother and my father to the Rabbitzon's house, the Rebbe and Rebbetzins house, to meet the Rabbitson. And the Rebbe's menorah was lit, and I was very small. And I actually do not remember this visit because, you know, I don't remember so many things from that stage of my life. But I always feel that there must have been a reason for my visit, and having seen the Rebbe's holy menorah still lit. The Rebbe had gone back to 770, the shul, and we got to meet the Rabbitson at this time. And I definitely know what a zechut, what a privilege and merit that was for me. And I try to really remember this time and try to see how it impacts and reflects my life. And I know that as a woman, I learn a lot from the Rabbitson in both how to really be a vibrant and woman who's able to really interact with our world, but also to make it a beautiful world and a beautiful place. Something that really struck me growing up, we always heard stories of the Rabbitson. And even though not much was known about her until after her passing, which was, by the way, 34 years ago, I always remembered my younger sister went to the Rabbitson and she said to her, and the Rabbitson never had her own children, but my sister was 3 or 2.5, and the Rabbitson said, "Come to Dada," and she would give the children little candies, and she would make them feel so special. She would always ask, my brother was there also at the time, and she said, "What's your favorite song? And do you want to sing for me?" And every time my family went there, they sang certain songs, some of them that they knew she would like, and some of them just that they had just finished learning or wanted to share. She took such an interest in every person who was there. And growing up and hearing this, I had such a warm feeling always about the Rabbitson. But as I grew up, I realized that this wasn't the norm. Most people did not know who the Rabbitson was and sort of what she represented. And there's two sides of this. On one hand, you could say, wow, she was such a great woman. And believe me, she was. In fact, the Rebbe said about her, if you would only know her greatness. He said, Hashem is the only one who knows her greatness. And he also told people, when people said, could you, they were by and they asked the Rabbitson, could you ask the Rebbe to, ask for a blessing for us? The Rebbe told these people, you could ask the Rabbitson to bless you too. In other words, she had this strength too. But at the same time, we also often heard about her humbleness and how no one really, she seemed so private, like, and elegant and almost something you can't touch. So today I want to try and find this balance of a sort of a woman nowadays where we can look up to the Rabbitson as a role model for who we are and what our mission is in this world right now, in the time we're in now. So why is it so important that this past week we celebrated the anniversary of her passing? It would seem that an anniversary of her passing could be a sad day, right? Like sometimes it brings up feelings of memories of this time that we're sad that this person who was alive is no longer. And yet with a great person or a tzaddik or tzaddikus, we know that the day of their passing is a very special day because it's a culmination of their holy work in this world. And even though that's difficult for us to really feel as humans, because we have feelings, when we know this, we also know that this is a day of powerful introspection and a day for us to celebrate this person and to take special mitzvahs on so that their neshamas could rise higher when they're not here in this world, being able to do these mitzvahs. It happens to be that after the Rabbitson's passing, we actually entered into a whole new dimension of the world. And the Rebbe spoke about this to the women at the gathering of the Women's Convention of all the Chabad emissaries of the Chabad Shluchot. 30 years ago this week, the Rebbe gave over this talk where he spoke about this special date of the Rabbitson's passing, how we entered into a new category. And we'll go into that very briefly. So first of all, we know what is our mission in the world. Our mission is to bring godliness, to bring God down into our world so he can dwell in this world with us, right? So there's a few stages. In a home, you have basic. When you're building a home, you need the structural element of the home. The second part you need is the detailing. You need the interior design, a new ceiling. What are the walls going to be like? And then you have the stage we're in now, which is the beauty in the home. It's a different depth. It's a place of how can I create an environment? How can I create a home that Hashem will be comfortable in? Not just spiritually from a place of doing mitzvahs and Torah, but in physically. How can I make this a home for God to be able to be in this home? How can I make it a dira no'eh? How can I make it a spectacular, beautiful home, both in atmosphere, in physical, and in spiritual? It's a marriage of all these things. And to me, it feels so in line with who the Rabbitson was. She was a woman of our world. She was in tune with the externalities of the world around us, and yet she was able to be physically and spiritually in tune with everyone who came into contact with her, and even those that may not have reached out to her directly. She was able to see the need in our world. Sometimes we think, okay, physicality is secondary and spirituality is primary. But the Rebbe tells us that no, this is a new element. This is a new dimension we're in. We're in this dimension, we're in a redemption, we're in a geula mode where everything in this world is a marriage of the two, where the beauty is not just an ends to a means, but it is the whole purpose, where we have to do everything in our power that the mitzvah should be done in a spectacular, beautiful way. Beautiful. That specific word the Rebbe uses. And I feel like the Rabbitson was really a role model where the Rebbe says that the living should take to heart. That's how we keep the Rabbitson here with us. By us taking on the mitzvot, by us taking these two, the physical and the spiritual and the beauty, and making a connection, a combination between all of them. So let's start with her name. Her name was the perfect blend of this. She had two names. One was Chaya, which means life, and one was Mushka, which is less known, but it actually means spices, like a scent, something you smell. Life is something that's innate within us. It's cumulative. It is who we are. Liveliness, it's something very tangible. It's something that's in the essence of us. Whereas Mushka is a bit more like, it's less tangible. It's more something that surrounds us and permeates us, but at the same time, it has a very strong impact on us over here in the world. So starting with that, you have the combination of the spiritual and the physical, the mundane, the everyday, with the esoteric. And what's incredible to me as a woman is that many mitzvahs, the women's mitzvahs specifically, have this same relationship where they are a physical mitzvah, very mundane, but by us doing a small act, we elevate the mitzvah into something beautiful and spiritual. So we'll start with challah. It's so mundane, it's the everyday, right? It's bread, it's things we need to survive. It's our life, it's everything we need. And yet, when we make the blessing, we take some of that dough for the holy priest, for the kohanim, suddenly we elevate this everyday bread into challah, to something very spiritual and holy. And then we have the candles, which not only is the actual candle itself such a beautiful mitzvah, just physically, if you look at it, it's a candle, it's a light, it's stunning, it's in a candlestick. When we light it, we have elevated it, and it permeates our homes with stunning light. And family purity is of the same essence, taking something where it's our everyday relationship and elevating it by going to the mikvah. Automatically, our mitzvah has now become something where it permeates our entire lives, and elevates the experience to something spiritual. I find that women have a very special, we have a very special nature. We have a very special gift, that we are in tune with the externalities of our world in a way that we can draw them into our spiritual and create this marriage of elevating our spirituality with beauty. Women have this ability to take the physical and make it into spiritual, taking the spiritual and adding a special touch to our homes, to our environments, to our world through these special mitzvahs. And every mitzvah, it's not just these three. I just chose to highlight these three because for me as a woman, it has such a strong emphasis that we have this ability to really transform something with our special mitzvahs. But in everything we do, we are able to elevate our experience to taking the spiritual, the ruchnius, and the physical, the gashmius, and making it into something, taking them both to a different level. So not just taking the gashmius and making it spiritual, making it ruchnius, but even taking the ruchnius, the special spiritual mitzvot, and actually adding a physical touch to extend the beauty physically. And the Rebbe goes into this at depth, where we're in a place now, we're in a time where we're talking about physical beauty, adding a special touch, our Shabbat tables, making them beautiful, whether it's with words, beautiful words, whether it's songs, whether it's actually physically setting your table with a nice tablecloth and beautiful candles. And this was something the Rabbitson also took a lot of pride in. When she hosted people, it was done with a beautiful emphasis. She prepared herself. She would always sit waiting or stand waiting for her guests. When they would arrive, she would be standing there. When her leg hurt her, when later on and she had something with her leg, she was sitting, waiting for her guests. Her guests always felt like they were the whole world and she was ready for them. It's a beautiful story that happened with my oldest sister. She was, so she's the oldest in the family. She's actually not the oldest in the family, but she's the oldest girl. And so she left home to go to seminary in New York. And she had no family here, and all the family were back in England. And the Rabbitson had met her when the family were together and she was here. And the Rabbitson said to her at the meeting with my grandparents and my parents, she said, "You're going to be here in New York now. I want you to reach out to me. You have a friend here." And my sister, obviously feeling very touched, but at the same time, like, that's not really, going to be happening that way, obviously, right? Like, yes, I have a friend, but it's the Rabbitson. I'm not going to really reach out to her. One day, she got a friend of hers. My grandfather called her and said, "The Rabbitson is trying to get hold of you. She can't get hold of you. Can you give her your number so she knows how to get hold of you?" And my sister thought, okay, my grandfather must be exaggerating. What do you mean the Rebbetzin? The Rebbetzin, the wife of the Rebbe wants to get hold of me, a little 18-year-old? It can't be. So she started penning a letter and writing to the Rebbetzin that she's in New York and here's her phone number, like as if the Rebbetzин's getting hold of her, but she wanted to do the respectful thing to my grandfather and write the letter he had asked. So she did that. And a few weeks later, her friend she's walking down the street on a Friday afternoon back home to her dorm. And her friend is racing up the street towards her, like frantically waving her hands, "Chaya, Chaya!" And she's screaming. My sister's like, "Calm down, what's wrong?" She's like, "I just answered the phone. And this woman said, is Jens Chaya there?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, she's not here. Can I take a message?" And the woman said, "Yes, please tell her that Mrs. Schneerson from President Street is trying to reach her." And the girl almost dropped the phone and she's like, "This must be a prank call." She's like, "This must be a prank call. What is going on?" She's racing down the street. She doesn't know what to say, what to do. She's just panicked. And my sister's like, okay, I better try and get hold of the Rabbitson, which she eventually did. And the Rabbitson told her that she was trying for weeks to get hold of my sister. And she had called my sister's school, the seminary she was studying in, And she said, can I speak to Jens Heino? And they said, I'm sorry, we don't call students out of class. If only they knew, right? And my sister spoke to the Rabbitson, and the Rabbitson told my sister, I know you must feel very lonely right now because your family are having the first family wedding. It was my first cousin's wedding in England. And my sister was the only one not there at the wedding in Manchester, England. And the Rabbitson, noticing and realizing the loneliness that my sister must be feeling when everyone else is celebrating together, the homesickness that she must be feeling, the Rabbitson was in tune with the pain that my sister must be experiencing during that time. And that's sort of the reason I love this story. First of all, because wow, it's really very unique. And secondly, because it really emphasizes the Rabbitson's care and how she tapped into not just what was in front of her, but what wasn't necessarily so obvious. We go through life and sometimes we see someone and they tell us they're experiencing a hardship, and that's a level, believe me, that's a level to be able to say, how can I help you? Or to step in to help them before they're at that level. But to, in your mind, think about people who are not in the forefront of your day-to-day, and think about how you can impact them, how you can perhaps help them out. That is another level. And that's always something I try to emulate, if you would. And I grew up with this story, and it's always something I think about, whether it's my friends, people I'm involved with in my community. I think I haven't heard from that person, or I know she's experiencing something, or whatever it is, it's a hard time of the year, I'm going to send something, I will reach out. This to me is something very powerful. As women, we have this innate ability, but we also are so busy in our world, and we get so caught up in, it's busy, it's hectic. But to take a moment every morning or every evening to think about someone in our lives, and I'm talking to myself because I'm not perfect in this way, but it's something I do try to do. And maybe as a group here today, this is something we could think of. And obviously other things will resonate with you, but this is just my share of something that I try and take into my life. Now I want to go back into women and what the Rebbe spoke about, how he addressed this specific timing we're in, and how the Rebbe says specifically it was the Rabbitson who initiated this period that we're in, which is on a different level, and therefore we can learn from her. So the first component that I think is so powerful is our homes, whether it's in actuality homes that we have or homes that we are hoping to have. When we're thinking about the home we want, this is so foundational in our entire lives, our entire relationships, and everything we do. And I think of homes as us, as people. I think when the Rebbe spoke about making our home a beautiful home, I think he was also talking about, as individuals, the way we treat our inner selves, treating ourselves kindly, talking to ourselves kindly, encouraging ourselves kindly and gently, really tapping into an inner joy. So firstly, it really does start with ourselves. And when we talk about homes, it's talking about an individual. Hashem says, "V'asili mikdash," you should make for me a home. He's talking about individually within each of us. Hashem wants to be in this home. So now we're taking this concept to another level of beauty. So what does beauty mean? So the Rebbe talks about beauty could be in dealing with perhaps your children, in how you educate, and not just your own children, but children you interact with, maybe friends' children, maybe you're a teacher, maybe people you bump into in the streets, maybe you are an educator, whatever it is. There are so many times when you interact with children, and by the way, children doesn't even mean youngsters. It just means children who are perhaps people who are younger than you. And the Rebbe talks about talking to these children with joy and with warmth and with edelkeit, with refinement. And I want to take a moment that we're here as women, we have this ability to really lift someone and really crush someone. And we can look at the words the Rebbe talks about, edelkeit, happiness. The Rebbe talks about refinement and happiness in the way we interact with our children, which is physical or spiritual children, or any child or people you interact with. So that's the second thing. First is ourselves, treating ourselves with the same kindness and gentleness. And the second one is our children. And obviously our homes should be homes where we infuse it with not just godliness and a tzedakah box and mezuzahs and beauty in Yiddishkeit. And something very beautiful when we were growing up, my father always prepared tzedakah for us. And next to our tzedakah, and this is what I think the Rebbe must have been talking about when he says beauty is, there's beauty and then there's the food, right? So my father always put a special treat next to the tzedakah so that when we came down in the morning, believe me, we didn't forget our tzedakah because we always wanted to go find the treat next to our money to go put in the charity box. So to me, that was bringing joy to the Judaism. We had the blessings hanging up, and this is something I try to bring into my own home and something I always reflect on, ways to bring Judaism with joy to everyone, whether it's people in my community, whether it's my children, whether it's friends, whether it's nieces or nephews who come hang out. Judaism should be joyful. It shouldn't be stringencies and laws. Those laws are good, but they should be given over in a loving and beautiful way. And I think when the Rebbe talks about your home should be infused with joy and educating children should be with beauty, this is what it talks about. When you're preparing for a Yom Tov, when you're preparing for a Chag, and you're excited about it, and you find ways to be excited, even when it's stressful, you tap into something, children, yourself, will all be drawn into this joy, will all be drawn into this excitement of the holiday. You know, Pesach's coming and there's so much, oh, I've got to do this and I have got to do that. And yes, it's a lot. But when we tap into the excitement of something that you find, a new resolution, something tradition that you do with your family or for yourself, then eventually it becomes your reality. Purim can be so stressful and it can be so fun. Finding joy in the everyday, finding joy for your Shabbat table, for Shabbos, tapping into a moment of finding beauty in it is when it will be, without it being stressful. It doesn't have to be the most stunning over the top. Beauty is many things, and everyone has different levels of what beauty means. It just means the efforts that you put in should be with beauty, should be with refinement, should be with something that really has an impact on yourself and those around you. What really stood out to me is that the Rabbitson really represents all of this. She was positive, she was refined, she was also very educated and very worldly, and she cherished friendships, and she was interested in the other person who was there. It wasn't just about what she was doing. She wanted to know from you what you were doing. She wanted to know what her need was, how she could help you, how she could be there for you. And she was also the Rebbe's biggest supporter. And she was the Rebbe's biggest chassid. And if the Rebbe was doing something, she also wanted to do something. But ultimately, there was a partnership that was so powerful and so strong, a respect that was so great, just from different stories that I'm not going to go into today. And there was also, she also had a sense of humor, and she was sensitive, and she also was her own person. And her own person was often, from my family's interaction, was hosting them, and what they got to see around her table, the crystal glasses she used and the beautiful dishes, the effort and the emphasis she had for every person around that. So if there's something I'm going to just wrap up here today, as you can see, there's so many things, but ultimately that in our world, we're in a different element. We're always told we have to make this world a dwelling place for Hashem, but this is a different time period we're in. We have to make this a beautiful world, whether it's through acts of loving kindness, doing it in a beautiful way, whether it's learning Torah, whether it's giving tzedakah, or whether it's studying something like we're here today. And believe me, Chaya does this so beautifully, putting a flyer together just for a Zoom meeting. To me, that's taking an event and elevating it, putting effort into it to make it beautiful, to attract other people to want to be here together. And also, if you know something, then don't wait for someone else to teach it, but you know something, share that with someone else. Like the Rebbe always said, if you know Aleph, if you know the letter Aleph, teach the letter Aleph. You don't have to know the whole Torah. We don't have to be people who agree to go out and be emissaries, who agree to go out and be a teacher. We can just teach by our interactions, by our mitzvahs, by spreading our special women gifts. We can make our world a beautiful, stunning world that's filled with beauty and refinement and joy for everyone who we interact with. And what is a chus, what a merit we have to be women of this generation who can actually do all this and do it with a special care and beauty. So l'chaim, we should all bless one another. We should all have joy in our lives. We should all have the ability to tap into our beautiful, beautiful, innate, we all have this innate nature. It's a woman's thing. We should all be able to tap into our woman's strengths and the beauty and be able to shine it in our world. Thank you, everyone.
Shevi, thank you so much.
I'm really happy I was persistent because you were really great. So thank you. And I would like to introduce Mrs. Sternberg, who also has a very busy schedule, and she agreed to speak on this class because she felt it was important to share. And the reason why tonight I asked Mrs. Sternberg is because if you go online and you look at all the pictures of the Rebbe, I know when I was a child, Mrs. Sternberg is in almost every single one. And we're going to hear why she was in those pictures and why she was always standing next to the Rebbe. And she met at the Rabbitson as an adult. So she can share with us beautiful stories. And we're so grateful for you sharing your personal stories with us. So thank you, Mrs. Sternberg. You just need to unmute yourself. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know. Good evening, everybody. I don't know, Chaya, why you want me to talk about why I stood by the Rebbe when he gave dollars. It's not part of the program, but I'm going to say very briefly that I think everybody knows that the Rebbe would give out dollars to anybody that came to him on Sunday. It started about 12 o'clock, later 1 o'clock, and the Rebbe would allow anybody who wants to come over to him. He would give him a blessing with $1. And the dollar was supposed to be for you to give that for charity, and he was enabling you to give charity. So he gave you $1, but because you wanted to hold on to that dollar, you didn't give that to charity. You exchanged it with either another dollar bill or a $5 bill or a $10 bill, and the Rebbe was enabling you to give charity. And the reason I was standing there is because many people came, and when the Rebbe spoke to them, sometimes a person would get very excited or very emotional, and they just stood there and they were like, they couldn't even move. And the Rebbe was standing on his feet sometimes for 5 or 6 hours. So there had to be people to sort of urge the people to move on so that the Rebbe should not stand on his feet for nothing as this woman is coming back down from her ecstasy. So that's why I was there, actually trying to make the line go quicker. It has nothing to do with my relationship with the Rabbitson, with the Rebbe's wife. It has nothing to do with that. But what Kai was trying to say is, if you ever saw a picture and you'll recognize my face, of course, many years have passed and I got much older. I look very different, and I never knew that it was going to be actually photographed. The people are going to have this. I would have been dressed differently. I would have had a different hairdo. But anyway, that was in the past, and she just wanted to mention that. Actually, what she asked me to do originally, Chaya, is to speak about Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, the wife of the Rebbe, who I had a very unique relationship with. And I just want to say at the outset that my relationship had nothing to do with me personally. It had to do with my father, of blessed memory, who was very close to her from when he was a little baby. his family was very close to the family, to her father's family, to her grandfather's family, and they always lived in the vicinity where the Rebbe would live, either her father or her grandfather. And my father lived in that area, my father's family. So when Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka was sitting Shiva when her mother passed away, and I went to a Shiva call to her. I just had a 1-year-old son after 4 daughters, and she was very eager to know if he has the same, if he's the same type of child that my father was. My father was very rambunctious. My father was a child that would pull off the tablecloth, and on Friday night they were worried that the candlesticks would fall off. And she wanted to know if my son was like that. It happens to be this son was very quiet and not at all like that, but we had a lot of discussions, and I didn't even realize that she knew him from when he was a year old. So when they came to America, just was natural that they continued their relationship. And my father was in touch with her about everything and told her everything about his life and everything about his children, everything. And I very often got into trouble. I don't like to say that, but the Rabbitson knew things about me and sometimes told her husband about it. And I'm going to share with you a story. I don't know why I'm starting with this, but I just thought maybe you would appreciate it. When I was about to get engaged, when I was actually going to meet my husband, we at that time used to ask the Rebbe, should I meet this boy? Does the Rebbe think it's a good idea? And if he said yes, you would meet the boy. And after you met the boy as many times as you had to, then you asked the Rebbe if you should get married, and you waited for his blessing if he agreed to it. The same thing was my husband, before he got married, asked if he should meet me. And when he asked if he should meet me, the Rebbe answered, he should meet me on the condition that he will be able to sit and learn Torah for 2 years after the wedding. We have a system in our community that for the first half a year or a year, the young man sits and learns in like a yeshiva. They call it a kollel. It's like a yeshiva, and he's married men sit there and learn, because it might be the last time they have time to really put a lot of time into learning, because they're starting their life. They have to support their wife and family. They have to go and do their jobs, whether it be if they're on shlichut or if they're going into business. So this time after the marriage is a time where they do nothing else but sit and learn Torah. So my husband, as a boy yet, got this message that he should look into meeting me on the condition that he will be able to sit and learn for 2 years. My father agreed that he would support us for 2 years, and we met. And we decided to get married, and we got a blessing from the Rebbe to get married, which thank God we are very happily married, and I wish everybody in their life to be as happily married as we are. We got married just before Pesach. So it meant that 2 years later, just before Pesach, he has to think about a job, because my father was supporting us for 2 years. My husband very much wanted to be in the field of education. He felt that he's going to be most successful in that. And he wanted to be in the system, the yeshiva system. And in our community, at that time, there weren't so many families, and the schools, all the schools here had their staff, and they did need an extra teacher. There weren't so many new children being born. There weren't so many additions to the yeshiva, and they had their staff. And my husband was looking for a job, and he couldn't find anything in education. And I was so upset, and I must have spoken to my father 100 times about it, that I feel so bad that my husband will not be in the field of education because he has to support me. And I really feel bad that he's going to have to go into business, which he really didn't want to do. I don't know that the Rebbe, that the Rebbetzin, my father told the Rebbetzin about this. I didn't know that because I didn't think it was important for them to discuss it. But one time when I went to the Rebbe for a personal, how do we call it, yechidus, a personal interaction with the Rebbe, where you went into his room for a blessing. And it was just, I was expecting my second child, and I went in for a blessing. And the first words the Rebbe says to me, I hear that you're worried about your livelihood. And I was so embarrassed, because it sounded like I'm worried that I won't have enough money, and I'm money hungry. And I was so embarrassed that the Rebbe should think that about me, that I'm worried about my finances. He doesn't have enough. He has to feed billions of people and he doesn't have enough to feed you. I was so embarrassed that it came out that I don't have faith that God has enough ways of feeding me. So I explained to the rabbi, I was so embarrassed. I said, I'm worried that my husband should have to do a livelihood that's not to his liking. So the Rebbe assured me, don't worry, everything is going to work out. Just don't worry. And I realized that it was the Rabbitson who told the Rebbe about it. And this is just one of the many times that she told the Rebbe something about me. And later, when I met the Rebbe, he would say to me, I hear that you're worried about this, or I hear this. And I was always embarrassed. And I actually was nervous every time I went to the Rebbe. Who knows what else the Rabbitson told the Rebbe about me that I was not specifically going to tell the Rebbe. So she just had this nature because she was very close to my father and she knew a lot about my family and she knew a lot about us. And she would discuss it seems, with her husband, with the Rebbe so often. But when we talk about the Rebbetzin, and I know questions were asked of Shevi, why do we think that the Rebbetzin was so shielded from the public and why she didn't interact with the public? And like Shevi said, I think that the Rebbetzin realized, first of all, she was a very modest and humble person. She was not humble because she was simple. She was extremely brilliant woman. She was very knowledgeable in any subject you would talk to her about. She was knowledgeable in Torah subjects. She was knowledgeable in Hasidic subjects. She was knowledgeable in world history and world politics, in everything. However, she had this, I would like to say that she realized the greatness of her husband and she did not want it any way to interfere with him. So she decided that if she goes out amongst all of us, she's going to get so much adulation. She's going to get so much love from everybody. And she doesn't want, she's so humble. She doesn't need thousands of people to want to kiss her or thousands of people that want to honor her. And she refused to get the honor. So she kept herself away so that people should not honor her and give her so much of the love that we would have given her. There's a story told about a store in our neighborhood that sold very beautiful little petit fours, cakes that were made very, very beautifully. And whenever she had guests, she would set a beautiful table. And she went to the store herself. She was she was a woman who drove a car. She went shopping. And she went to the store to buy these beautiful cakes. And suddenly, a young man from the neighborhood recognized her. And she was standing online like all the other people were standing online. So he goes over to the manager and he says to the manager, why are you letting this lady stand online? Do you know that she is the wife of the Rabbitson Rebbe? She should not be standing alone. So the man said, well, I have no idea who she is. She comes in and she pays with cash. I never heard her name. So he goes over to her, the manager of the store, and he said, excuse me, I didn't know who you are, but I don't want you to wait online. And she says, no, don't treat me different from anybody else. I can wait online. And he said, no, please, Rabbitson, let me serve you. And she says, no, I don't want to be treated any differently. And he had this very terrible problem. She refused to say what she needs. So she finished her line. She took what she got and she never went back to that store because she knew they would recognize her. So if she ever needed anything from that store, she would either have somebody go buy it for her or she called on the phone, they should bring it to her. But she knew if she walks into the store, they're right away going to take it to the front. They're going to serve her. Didn't want to be different from anybody else. This is her nature, but her nature was that our Rebbe belongs to the Hasidim. He belongs to the world at large, actually. I think everybody listening or watching this knows that the Rebbe was a man that was involved with the whole world. He wasn't only involved with Lubavitch Hasidim. He was involved with Jews all over the world and even with non-Jews in the world, and he was trying to make this a better world. And the Rebbe used to have audiences with people every Sunday night, every Tuesday night, and every Thursday night. And he would speak to people that asked to come for a blessing. But if he knew that he could accomplish something through them, because this person was a man of power, either in the rabbinic world or in a university where he could impact students, or any other person that has a power over other people, that has contact with other people, the Rebbe would try to get this person to accomplish something that the Rebbe wants him to accomplish. And sometimes when these people came in, they were told they only have 3 minutes to talk to the Rebbe. They can't be longer. But sometimes the Rebbe would keep them for an hour or two, or sometimes 3 hours, because the Rebbe was trying to get them to do something, and he had to get them to want to and explain it to them. And these nights, the Sunday night and Tuesday night and Thursday night, the Rebbetzin was all alone at home. And sometimes the Rebbe came home at 1 o'clock, and sometimes at 3 o'clock. And sometimes there were times that the Rebbe was there all night long seeing people, and he would not even go home to sleep. He would first go to morning prayers and then go home. And where was the Rebbetzin all these nights? All alone at home. My father told me that he once spoke to her and said, Rebbetzin, if you would tell your husband that you're afraid to be home alone so many hours, he would curtail it at a certain hour and continue 2 days later. And she just smiled as if to say, I'm not going to mix it. And my husband said, but you know, you want your husband to do anything for you. And she just smiled as if to say, I'm not mixing into him, because she realized that his life is for the people that he wants to accomplish with. His life is for his followers. His life is for the world, and she is not going to mix it. There's a very touching story told about when the Rebbe was ill in 1977. It happened right after we had the Shmini Atzeret dancing in the shul, and the Rebbe had actually a heart attack in the shul. And many doctors were brought and to see what the problem was. My father told me how when the Rabbitson came, she was called from home. And one of the doctors, a very big heart specialist, told her that the Rebbe's life is in danger and he must go to the hospital. But the Rebbe had said he does not want to go to the hospital. He wants to stay right here in the special room in the shul, where is the room that he would have his study, where he would see all the people, where he would give all the people blessings. And he wants to stay here. And this doctor came and said, it's ridiculous. He needs an intensive care unit. And he came over to the Rabbitson and did not mince words and gave a very, very dire prognosis. And the Rabbitson was very smart. She understood exactly what the doctor said. And my father said he was shaking because the doctor was scaring her so much. And she said, do you know that people from the whole world, they come to ask my husband what they should do in their medical emergency, and they listen to him. Don't you think we should listen to him? And the doctor said, no, I think that you should override your husband and give us permission. We'll give him an injection to put him to sleep, and we'll transfer him to the hospital, and he'll be there. It'll be too late. And she did not allow it, not because she didn't realize he needs an intensive care. She said, if he needs an intensive care unit, we're going to make an intensive care unit here. And I have to tell you that within a half hour, they had all the equipment for an intensive care unit in his room and the next room outside. And the Rebbe had the best care in his office, the way he wanted to be. Even though she was a woman that understood the danger, she understood that her husband is greater than that. And if he says that he wants to stay here, that everything is going to be okay in his room. And so it was that he was, thank God, completely healed and was able to go home after 6 weeks. And he had a complete recovery. Just shows you the strength that she had, even though she was so frightened. She was so frightened that the doctor, my father said that she was shaking because the doctor spoke so seriously. Yet she felt that what her husband wants is what we have to do. On the other side of the coin, if there was anything that had to be done for her, she didn't want her husband to be involved because she didn't want to take him away from what he has to do. So I'll tell you a story that might sound a little funny to you, but she once had a problem with her eye. And my father was very close to her, and she knew that my father knew a lot of doctors and knew a lot of specialists and understood medicine. So she tells him that she has this terrible problem with the eye. And my father had a very big doctor in Manhattan that knew of the best specialists in New York. And whenever he needed a doctor, he would call this doctor friend, ask him for referrals. And my father called him up and said, I need the greatest ophthalmologist that you could find me in New York for the Rebbe's wife. And he gave the name, but he said, I'm telling you right now, he's so busy, he'll never get an appointment. Anybody who knew my father knew that my father never takes no for an answer. So my father called up to the office and asked for an appointment. And the receptionist said, I'm sorry, it's at least 6 or 8 months till I can give you an appointment. So my father said, okay, thank you. Went into his car and drove to Manhattan, drove to Park Avenue, left his car double parked because he was just going to be there for a minute. He runs into the office and the receptionist says, excuse me, the doctor's about to leave. He's writing notes about his patients. What do you need? And my father said, well, I must speak to the doctor just for 1 minute. And she said, well, you can't do that because he's busy now. And my father said, I'm sorry, I need 1 minute. And my father barged into the doctor's office, knocked on the door, but barged in. And he said, doctor, I need you to see a patient tomorrow morning. She is the most important woman in all of New York. And the doctor got so shocked. Who is this most important woman in all of New York? And my father explained to the doctor, did you ever hear of the Lubavitcher Rebbe? It's his wife. So the doctor got very shocked and he said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning. And my father was very happy. Tomorrow morning. They came tomorrow morning. My father went with the Rabbitson, and the doctors saw that she has a problem that has to be treated with a certain procedure. And he said there are 2 different ways of doing it. You can decide on your own which of the 2 procedures, and you come to the hospital tomorrow morning, and I'll do whichever procedure you decided on, one of the 2. But you should know that each of them have a risk. There's a risk attached to each of the procedures. Decide if you want this procedure. And I can't tell you now what it was. I don't remember. On the way home from the doctor, my father says, okay, Rebbetzin, we have to ask your husband now which procedure to do. She says, oh, no, I do not want my husband to know that I'm suffering from something. So I'm not going to tell him that I have to have a procedure because I don't want him to worry. So my father started to laugh and said, Rebbetzin, everybody comes to ask your husband what to do when they have a problem. Don't you want the best advice? She says, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. But I don't want my husband to know. And my father said, but I don't do anything without asking the Rebbe. How can I decide for you? And she said, I'm sorry, I don't want him to know. Whatever you tell me, I'll accept it. My father was so upset because how can he decide for her? And especially if there's a risk to it, how can he make a decision? I remember my father came home and I happened to be in his house and he couldn't even talk. He was so nervous. And I kept saying, what's going on? He couldn't even talk because he didn't know what to do. He had this terrible responsibility and he didn't know what to do. And after a while, I see he gets dressed like any chassid that's about to write to the Rebbe. They get dressed in their Shabbos clothes and they wear their hat and they wear such a belt, which is representative of how you write to the Rebbe or how you pray. And he sits down and writes a letter to the Rebbe. I never saw the letter, but he told me later that he wrote, your wife has a problem that has to be addressed. She has to have a procedure on her eye, and there are 2 different options, and she refuses for you to know about her suffering, and she wants me to decide which procedure. Now, you know me, he writes to the Rebbe, I don't do anything without asking you, but she doesn't want to ask you. So what am I to do? And the Rebbe answered him, that she doesn't have to know, that I will tell you, I will guide you. You write to me, tell me what the different procedures are, and I will tell you what to do. And so my father described both procedures, and the Rebbe chose one of them. And my father called up to the Rabbitson and said, okay, I decided on this procedure. And she was so calm because she really trusted my father. She never was told that the Rebbe knew about it because she didn't want to intrude on him. Now, I have another story to tell you. Again, how the Rebbetzin, her nature. She once fell and she broke her hip and she was in a hospital. And for whatever reason, she was not able to have surgery because she had another medical problem that did not allow her to have surgery. I was there, my father was there because it was a whole decision had to be made if she could have surgery. And we arranged to get big specialists to make a consultation. And they came to the conclusion that she cannot have the surgery. And they said it's going to take at least a year for her hip to heal, because without surgery, it's going to take a long time. And she's going to be in a lot of pain. And a whole day, we were sitting and worrying, and people were coming, different doctors and different orthopedists were coming, giving us ideas of what to do for her, that she should not be in so much pain. Somebody had come from her house and brought her this beautiful night jacket. It used to be a style that if a woman had to lay in bed, she wore a night jacket on top of her nightgown. So if she had guests, you didn't see her nightgown. And it was a light blue with lace on. It was like out of some kind of satin. But she couldn't put it on because if she would lift up her hand to put on the sleeve, she would be hurting the place where she broke her hip. So she didn't put it on. Anyway, that whole day we're sitting in the hospital. Doctors are coming in and out trying to figure out what to do for her. And suddenly we were sitting there in the waiting room, and that day was a fast day. It was Tisha B'Av in the summer where you fast for a whole day. And somebody brought us food from Brooklyn. And about 10 o'clock at night, when the fast was over and after everybody ate, the phone rang. There was a phone booth right out of the room. We were sitting in the visiting room. And it was the Rebbe's secretary saying that the Rebbe's coming to visit her in the hospital. And I remember getting so excited because I had never seen the Rebbe go anywhere except to the shul or to his house or to the resting place of his father-in-law. So I got very, very excited. I figured, let me let the Rabbitson know that her husband is coming. I would not go into the room because I knew that the Rabbitson would not be happy if I saw her laying in bed, because whenever I saw her, she looked like a queen. Just the way she was dressed. She wasn't wearing fancy clothing, but everything was so well tailored and everything was so refined that I didn't think it was a proper thing for me to go into the room when she's laying in bed. So I called out the nurse and I said, just tell her that her husband is coming to visit. She says, okay. And I went back to this visiting room. And about 5 minutes later, the nurse comes out and she has tears coming down her eyes. And I said, why are you crying? What happened? She says, I never saw a woman like this patient. She heard her husband is coming and she said, please, could you please dress me up that I should look good when my husband comes? I don't have any makeup on. I must be very pale. Could you get makeup from somebody, put on some color on my cheeks, put some lipstick on, let me get dressed in that jacket because I don't want him to see me suffering. I want him to think that I'm very comfortable here, as if she was in a spa. So the nurse said, usually when a patient gets visitors, they cry to the visitors, I'm suffering so much, I'm in so much pain. And look at this woman, she's trying to hide it from her husband that he shouldn't see her pain. That is how the Rabbitson treated her husband. She didn't want to take him away, or he should be worried, his mind should be taken away from what he had to do. And she was shielding him, not because she was a meek little woman, because she realized the greatness of the Rebbe, and she didn't want to intrude on what he had to do for the world at large. I'll tell you one other story about the Rebbe. The Rebbe treated her like a queen. And I have to tell you a personal story that I witnessed. My father was once in the business of importing cultured pearls from Japan. And the Rebbe once asked my father to please buy for him pearls to make the Rabbitson a choker of 3 strands. I don't know how many people remember years ago, we used to wear 3 strands of pearl, each one a little bit lower than the other. In order to get 3 strands, you had to buy 4 strands because the longer ones had more than a strand. My father ordered the most beautiful pearls from Japan. It took time till it got shipped by boat. And as soon as they arrived, my father told me to bring it, to give it to the Rabbitson, not to say what it is, just to say my father is sending something for the Rebbe to look at. So I went to the house and she let me in. She knew me very well. And I said, my father asked me to give this to you to give to the Rebbe when he comes home. The next day, the Rebbe called up to say, the pearls are not beautiful enough for my wife. Please order more beautiful pearls. I don't know if anybody knows that pearls, the larger they are, the more, the shinier, the more beautiful they are. So we ordered larger pearls and shinier, more expensive pearls. And lo and behold, the second shipment came and the Rebbe said, they are not beautiful enough for my wife. And my father ordered a 3rd set of pearls. And only then did the Rebbe accept those because they were more beautiful. Just a personal story to show you how the Rebbe treated her. I think that everybody knows that the 22nd day of this month is the day that she passed away. But I want to show you something very great about the Rebbetzin, that on the 20th day of this month, which is Monday, she actually passed away Tuesday night, early morning of Wednesday. She was feeling some kind of a medical problem. So as soon as her husband left the house and he went to shul, she called her personal doctor and he came to the house and he said, Rabbitson, you have to go to the hospital for a certain test that can only be done in the hospital. I said, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. He said, well, this test cannot be done at home. And I think you need this test. The Rebbe said, no. And then he said, well, then I have to tell the Rebbe that you don't want to go to the hospital and ask him if it's okay. So she says, just a minute. Today, you cannot speak to my husband because tonight is supposed to be an audience for all the guests that came from the whole world for a special date on the calendar, which is the date that our Rebbe became Rebbe. It's also the date of her father's passing. It was a very special day, the 10th day of the month of Shvat. It was just 10 days before, 12 days before her passing. And the Rebbe would always have an audience for all the guests that came. And for some reason that year, that audience was postponed. Instead of being a few days after the 10th of the month, it was put off for the 20th day of Shvat. For whatever reason, I think there were some weddings going on, very big weddings, and the Rebbe didn't want to interrupt the weddings, because if he would have this audience, a lot of people that had to be at the weddings would also want to be at the audience, because also from out of town. So it was pushed off for Monday evening. She said to the doctor, if my husband is going to be busy with me because I'm not well, then he will cancel the audience with all the people that are waiting for him. I do not want all the people waiting for him to miss out on this audience. So you cannot tell my husband anything today. You can tell him tomorrow and we'll decide tomorrow. But today you cannot speak to him. Now, I want to tell you, she was almost 87 years old. She knew that the test she has to take is not a throat culture, it's not a blood test. It was something much more serious. And she knew her age. Yet, she gave up being treated medically that entire day because there are people that want to have her husband's blessing. And she didn't want to deny them of having this precious blessing. I'm not saying that she would have lived longer had she gone to do this medical procedure, because we know everything's in God's hands and it was premeditated. But she didn't know what tomorrow is. She just knew that today she doesn't want to interrupt her husband. She doesn't want to take him away from all these followers that want to get his blessing. And she did not let the doctor do anything for her. And just the next day, the Rebbe said to bring doctors to the house and specialists, and if they decide that she will go to the hospital. And that night she passed away. I'm just telling the story because I want to show you how she gave up a whole day of being medically treated at this age just because of people that she didn't even know them. People that were followers of her husband and they want his blessing. And she knew that she is deferring to him and let him do what he has to do for the world, and she will be taken care of whenever she will be taken care of. So whenever we think about the Rabbitson, and I'm just going to end with this because it's getting so late, the Rebbe told us, V'hachai yitein el libo, which means the living should take to heart what this person we're talking about that passed away, what she stood for, and we should emulate her. And if I think of what we should emulate, we could emulate that she was so kind and she was so wonderful to other people and she was so friendly and she gave everybody such a wonderful feeling. But I want to say what we should emulate is the most important part of her life, that she gave up everything for the Rebbe to be with the people in the world that needed him and needed this world to be prepared for the coming of Mashiach. So she gave up everything, even though she was this brilliant woman and she could have had whatever she wanted, and the Rebbe would have given her everything, and the Rebbe would have allowed anything that she would want to change. But she didn't want to change anything. She didn't want to take him away. Whatever the Rebbe wanted to do, she said he should be with the Hasidim. He should be with his followers, and she will take care of herself, whatever she needs to do. So that's my message to you about our Rebbetzin. Anybody has a question, I don't know if I have the answers, but I would entertain that or go on to your video. Chaya?
Thank you so much, Mr. Sternberg. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me and I will get you the answers. Mrs. Sternberg, you made such beautiful stories that most of us don't even know. And one of the things I want to say is I want to publicly say thank you to our Rebbetzin, because I feel very connected to the Rebbe. I met him as a child and he has a huge impact in my life till today. And I always go to the Rebbetzin first before I go to the Rebbe, because the Rebbe said he gave his wife so much credit, but he also knew who his wife was. And he said, if you go to my wife has a direct blessing. So I always go to his wife and the Rebbetzin, I say, Rebbetzin, please make sure your husband listens. So I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you to the Rebbetzin for your selflessness, because we know that when afterlife still exists and it's just one step ahead. So everyone, they hear us, what we're saying, they see us, our loved ones. So may we see the Rabbitson and the Rebbe and all of our loved ones so soon with the coming of Mashiach. We are going to conclude with a Rebbe video.
We hear that the Rebbetzin gave up of her life so that the Rebbe should be able to accomplish what he wants to in this world, to prepare the whole world for the coming of Mashiach. So we could try to emulate her by listening and remembering all the things the Rebbe told us that we should do and how we should lead our life. And the Rebbe was always urging us to help another Jew do another mitzvah, help another Jew learn something, learn some Torah. And she gave up everything of herself so the Rebbe could continue to do this. So we should try as much as we can to emulate her by trying to do what the Rebbe asked us, to do what the Rebbe gave up his life for, and see how we could reach out to other people and bring them closer to religious life and bring them closer, excuse me, to a Torah life that will ultimately make them so much happy. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sternberg.
Chaya, just add small thing that might help with this question also is that the Rebbe very much spoke to women, and that really women are the one that should be involved in every aspect of Jewish life. So if we can all do just a little bit more, think of what we could do or strengthen ourselves in something that, you know, we are slacking off on a little bit, and teaching our children and doing it with the children so they can see and they can one day teach it to their children. And I think that that's going to make an everlasting effect. And the Rebbe came out and asked women straight out to do this. And this was very important to the Rabbitson as well. So I think that that's a very good way to look at it as well. I read a very nice article about it actually, and I'll send it to you, Chaya, to share with everyone in the Sheikh Chabad newsletter this past month. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. Just please let me know if you're not seeing it, okay?
Sure. And just that while she's sharing the screen, just everyone be the reason why someone smiles today. That's my motto. I try to do that every single day. It's so easy. So figure out who's that person. We have 63 people. So 63 people can smile daily if we do that. We choose to be the reason why someone smiles today. Shelly, we don't see the screen just yet. And while she's sharing, this was a really special and beautiful program. And I try to find things that I would be inspired by. Here we go. So I hope you were inspired as well.
Sorry for your tragedy. Please accept my condolences, my sincere condolences. I hear she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, your wife. I'm very, very sorry for your tragedy. Please accept my condolences, my sincere condolences. I hear she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, your wife.
In my opinion, is underestimated.
When you speak about the sacrifice of the Rebbetzin, you're dealing with a person who was childless. We'd probably expect that this would compensate for the fact that she didn't have children. She at least had the company of her husband. Yet we see that she really surrendered that exclusivity to the world. She understood why the world needs the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
The Rebbe spent nights with yechidus with people. So when I mentioned to the Rabbitson that the hours and the physical kaiches that you need for this is tremendous. So the Rabbitson, she kind of had a wistful smile, and she said, "This is what Chassidim need now." And that's what the Rebbe has to give.
When the Rebbe just started Sivas Hashem, we had children who had signed up and were involved. And she said to me, I know how it's working here in America, but how have the children reacted in London? And of course, I was able to tell her the great excitement and how keen the kids were to grow up in rank and what was happening. And her eyes just shone, and this huge smile came on her face. And she said, it was almost shyly, she said, my husband had a good idea, didn't he? And it was just wonderful to hear how much she shared the Rebbe's life. But in doing so, she paid a huge price because she really was on her own. And it was something she did with a full heart.
With regard to the Sfarim case, there were very valuable Sfarim and manuscripts. There were volumes missing. The defendant said he has a right to it, that it's all family possession. And I still remember the most dramatic moment in the depositions, and maybe the most dramatic moment in the whole proceeding, when they made the mistake of asking the Rabbitson about, didn't your father own things? What did he have personally? What was his personal possessions?
Die Militärs hat sich geentfert und hat gesagt, der Gangen hat gefehlt auf Israel. Als der Tate hier, der Rebbe, gehört zusammen mit seinen Schworen und allen Jungen, gehört zu Chsidim und kein Jokum und ist geworden Echel. In der Linie, was die Nichtjuden haben gerechnet, hat das gehört zu selbst, sagen sie.
Thank you, Shelley, for sharing that beautiful video with us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. If you have someone that would enjoy this class, please invite them. Because if we know an Aleph, we should teach an Aleph. Thank you, Shevi. We hope we'll have you again in the future. Shevi has lots and lots to share, and her community is so lucky to have her. So thank you, Shevi. And thank you to Mrs. Sternberg. And thank you to everyone. This was really beautiful. Good night. Till next time.
Bye, ladies. Have a good night. Thank you all for joining.